Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first class of statistics. Today's class is going to be very, I can say theoretical, but an essential one. We want to understand the different aspects of statistics before we can go ahead and do, I can say the numerical aspects like probability or other things, right? The first thing that we want to do today is to get an overview of what statistics is all about. So you can go ahead and write the name of this as overview and descriptive stats. The aim is to understand what stat does and what are the various chains of statistics, what are the various branches of statistics. ठीक है जी? So बेटा शुरुआत कैसे करेंगे हम? To begin with, let us try and understand what is statistics. सबसे important जानना ये है कि stats होता क्या है. So see, whenever we work in the real life, we have a lot of data available to us. Just take an example. I am going ahead and I am, working on Facebook. Okay? You are also doing Facebook. Third person is also doing Facebook. When many people, they go ahead and they, look through Facebook, data is collected. What data? That which kind of ads you are watching on Facebook, which kind of ads I am watching on Facebook, right? Similarly, data is collected when you go ahead and you watch YouTube, for example. Okay? The ads that would be displayed to you will be very different from the ads that will be displayed to me. Why will that happen? That will happen because in the background, this Facebook or this YouTube has gone ahead and they have collected information. They've collected data and they've understood, they've summarized that data and they've gotten on some insights that this kind of person, actually likes watching this video. So the ad should be shown correspondingly. Like, for example, I will see a lot of ads related to data science courses on my YouTube because I am one person who keeps watching out for data science videos. So the aim is that in today's world, we have immense amount of data, but we want to go ahead and we want to organize and summarize that data. And not only that, we also want to go ahead and draw some conclusions from those data sets. That is exactly where statistics is useful. That is exactly what statistics is doing for you, right? So what is statistics? How can we define stats better? We can say that stats provides methods for organizing and summarizing data and for drawing conclusions based on that data and for drawing conclusions based on the information contained in the data. Okay, beta. So I want to go ahead and I want to find out some information from the data set, and that is where statistics will be useful for me. Now, let's take some examples for it. So for example, let me write down example 1 for you. So let's say that I want to go ahead and I want to provide insights of the data. Provide insights on data mane kya? Just say, for example, I am one person who wants to go ahead and go through the stock market a lot. Okay. I want to understand ki which share is on a hike and which share is on a decline. How can I find those insights? Statistics will help me. I can find out that From the last 7 days, what has been the average market value of this share? I can find out a trend that has this been on an increasing trend or a decreasing trend, right? So whenever I want to find any kind of insights on the data set, statistics will be useful to me. So just take an example. For example, the CUET result just came, right? I want to understand how my students performed. What was the average score of the students, right? How many students were able to get admission in Delhi University, right? So whenever we have to go ahead and we have to get some insights from the data set, that is where stats will be useful. Now, another thing which is important here is that this statistics can only be used in case of uncertainty and variation. Let me explain to you why. Imagine that you are certain about an outcome. You know for sure that whatever students I have, everybody will get into DSC. Then there is, or into Delhi University. Then there is no analysis involved. The analysis comes into picture because of the uncertainty, because there is some variation in my data, right? Because I know that out of 200, maybe 120 would have gotten into Delhi University. That is where the analysis comes into picture. So stats can only be useful whenever there is uncertainty and variation in your data set. If there is no uncertainty, if you're certain about the outcome, then there is no role of statistic, right? So for example, one of the very important tool of statistics, that is probability, right? And probability can come into picture only when there is uncertainty. So if you remember, a lot of times I give this example that, take the example that it will rain and it will not rain. And if it rains, you will not be able to organize your event, right? So there is uncertainty. And because there is uncertainty in the picture, that is the reason why I am able to introduce a component of statistics, which is probability, right? So the point is that an important aspect of statistics therefore becomes uncertainty and variation. Okay. Another example can be how your market performs, how cricket players will play. So we have a whole chain emerging now, and that is called sports analytics. Sports analytics tries to find out when the player will be injured, how many runs the player will make. But again, all that is possible because there is uncertainty in your data set, right? So because there is uncertainty, that is why we have the role of stats coming into picture. Now, we want to go ahead and understand some important terms today. So the first important term I want to talk about is population versus sample. Okay, beta. So beta, what is population? When you go ahead and you collect data of all the people possible, take it, just say for example, if I go ahead and I know that there were 1,10,480 people who gave the CUET exam, and I go ahead and I collect the marks of all these people, then this is my population. So what is population? Population means all people together, right? For example, voting में population is very useful. I want to understand the vote of all possible Indians. That is what I will do at the end, right? So that is population. Now, when you have information available for the entire population, beta, that is called as census. So please write down. We have something which is known as census. Census means I am able to collect desired information about all possible data points of population. Let me give you an example. Suppose every 10 years, India wants to understand how much its population has increased, what has been the salary of the people, income of the people, how many people are below poverty line, etc. How many members are there in the family. But I am doing something which is called as census. I am collecting information about every possible person who is there in India. बहुत मुश्किल है. I can only do it once in 10 years. बहुत costly affair है. So when you go ahead and you collect information about every possible person, that means you're collecting information of the population. That is the census. But due to many constraints, time, money, other resources, census is impractical every time, right? You cannot take information about the entire population. Okay, beta. Therefore, what comes into picture is called as a sample. So a sample is a subset of the population. And why is sample used? Because it is impossible for me to collect the data from the population. So we can say that due to time, money, and other resource constraints, we go with sample. And what is sample beta? It is a subset of population. So I want to go with a subset. पूरे population की जगह थोड़े से part के साथ जाना चाहेंगे, and that is called sample. Take an example. Suppose you would have heard that every this news channels, after you have done the election, पूरा process voting का पूरा हो जाता है, they go ahead and they come up and they tell us, according to us, this year so and so party will win. But how do they know that which party will win? They have not collected information from each and every person. They have only collected information from the samples. So what will they do? They will go outside voting booth and they will try and collect information that which person voted for which party. And on that basis, they will come up and say that according to us, currently we think that this party is going to win. That information may or may not be true. Kabhi kabhi ulta bhi ho jata hai. They may have said that this party will win and some other wins. क्यों? क्योंकि उन्होंने जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन कलेक्ट की वो सैंपल पे की है, और जो एक्चुअल में आंसर आता है बाद में कि विच पार्टी इज विनिंग, वो पॉपुलेशन पे आता है, राइट? सो सैंपल इज अ सबसेट ऑफ पॉपुलेशन. Because of constraints on time, money, effort, other resources, people go with sample. So whenever, even if you go for PhD sometime in your life, you will know that you will only be working with a sample. The next definition that I want to go through today is called a variable. So beta, what is a variable? Any characteristic whose value changes from one object to another is called a variable. For example, I have say 10 students in my class. Student number 1, student number 2, till student number 10. And I go ahead and I ask, beta, how much did you score in your microeconomics paper? This marks will vary from student to student. One must have scored 40, 42, 38, and so on. They have scored different marks. So marks is changing from one person to another. That means this is a variable. In particular, this is a numeric variable. This is a number that is changing from one person to another, right? Similarly, beta, I may ask, what is your gender? And people may tell me male, female, female, male, and so on. Again, this is changing from one person to another. It has two or more values attached to it. So beta, this is also a variable. But now this is a categorical variable because it is having qualitative values. And this is having quantitative values. Clear, beta? So what we can say? We can say that any characteristic whose value changes from one object to another that is called a variable. Variable can be qualitative or quantitative. Now, when you collect data, data can have either single or multiple variables. Just for example, I am only interested in understanding the proportion of male and female in my class. So I will only collect one data point, the gender of the people. So when I just go ahead and I collect a single variable, but that is called a univariate data set. So a univariate data set is one with a single variable. Like in my class, I am just understanding the gender of the people. So I may collect 10 students ka data point, male, female, female, male, male, female, and so on. I am collecting only one data point, so it is univariate. The other thing that you have, that is beta multivariate. The moment you collect more than one variable, that becomes multivariate. Like for example, I am interested in understanding marks and gender and let's say your family members, number of family members, etc. I am interested in understanding a lot of different information about you, about my different students, right? Then beta, that becomes a multivariate data set. Now, a special case of multivariate data set, that is called bivariate data set. So beta, bivariate data kya ho gaya? Any data which has exactly two variables. Like for example, this one. I wanted to understand your marks and gender. Do hi cheezein janni thi na. If I collect only information about two variables, then that is called a bivariate data set. So when I collect information about exactly two variables, and you can say that this is a special case of multivariate. Okay, beta. Now, we want to go ahead and understand the branches of statistics. ये बहुत important है. I can divide my entire stats in two main parts. The first one is called descriptive and second is called inferential. First, understand descriptive statistics. When you go ahead and you just want to present and collect your data, you want to describe your data. Ki, acha, what is the average marks scored by students? Or, what is the correlation between your marks and correlation between your marks and let's say your family income. ठीक है, ये बहुत important study है कि econometrics में होती है बाद में. Or I want to just go ahead and understand that okay, who has scored the highest marks? That means what is the mode? So when you want to go ahead and you want to describe your data set, right? That is descriptive statistics. So descriptive statistics basically is presentation and collection. Ulta likhna chahiye, collection and presentation kar dena of data. You first collect the data, then you present the data with some descriptions. Like on an average, the marks is this. The highest mark scored is this. This many people have scored this many marks. So when you go ahead and you collect and present data, that is descriptive statistics. This includes beta making some diagrams also, like drawing histograms, right? Or finding out mean, median, etc. This is all part of descriptive. Now, when you go ahead and you draw conclusions from your data set, that is inferential statistics. देखो यहाँ पे inferential में एक term आ रहा है infer. और infer का मतलब होता है to draw conclusions. So when you go ahead and you draw conclusions from your data, like, अच्छा, इसमें जो use होगा, I will teach you that later, which is called hypothesis testing. But just for now, let's say I'm taking an example that 50% of the males have higher wage than female. I am drawing an inference. मैंने एक data set देखा और उस data set से मैंने एक inference draw की कि मेरे data set के हिसाब से ये चीज true है, ऐसा हो रहा है. So when you go ahead and you draw an inference, you draw a conclusion from your data set, that is called as inferential statistics. But for descriptive statistics, when you draw these histograms, mean, median, ये सब करते हो, we have many statistical tools present. Few of these tools are R, Python, Stata, etc. So these are some of the statistical tools that are present that help you to do this descriptive statistics. Now, I want to draw a quick diagram here, and then I will explain you what this means. So imagine I have population here. And imagine I have sample here. Beta, population से sample जाने के लिए you will use probability. Probability माने कि when you go from population to sample, you will use probabilistic reasonings. ठीक है? जैसे for example, let's talk about that I have the data of 100 car drivers. And I want to ask कि बेटा कितने कार ड्राइवर्स होंगे जो रेगुलरली अपनी बेल्ट पहन के ड्राइव करते हैं, right? So when you go ahead and you want to check some information like this, like how many car drivers are wearing lap belt regularly. So beta, you will describe your data set. Like for example, आप एक average निकालोगे, आप कोई diagram बना के देख सकते हो. You will go ahead and you will try to describe your data sets in many ways, right? And to collect this 100 car drivers, शायद रोड पे चलते हुए आपको 1000 गाड़ियां दिखेंगी. You will see thousands and thousands of cars. Out of those thousands and thousands of cars, you will apply some technique to get these 100 drivers. Maybe probability. एक को पिक करने की कोई probability रही होगी कि अच्छा ये 4 cars गई, इसमें से मैंने इस एक को पिक कर दिया, है ना? So you will randomly pick. अच्छा, to pick up sample is also a technique. I will talk about that in some time. But अभी के लिए, out of the entire population, you will pick up some car drivers and then you will do deductive reasoning on it. कि on an average कितने car drivers हैं जिन्होंने car belt पहनी, who wore car belt, right? That is called deductive reasoning. You are deducing something. So this part, this is called deductive reasoning. So deductive reasoning क्या हो गई? When I make a statement, what kind of statement can I make? I can make a statement and say that, beta, out of 100 car drivers, 65 wore seat belt. तो मैंने जो अपना सैंपल कलेक्ट किया ना, उसमें से मैंने आपको एक इंफॉर्मेशन निकाल के दी कि 65 सीट बेल्ट पहनते हैं. अब once this deductive reasoning is done in the sample, you have got this information, you want to go ahead and you want to do inference कि इससे मैं क्या conclude करूं. So then you want to go back and you want to do inferential statistics. बेटा inferential statistics को समझने की कोशिश करो. Inferential statistics ये बोलती है कि अच्छा, मेरे को अपने सैंपल के बारे में तो एक इंफॉर्मेशन मिल गई है. I know about my sample that 65 out of 100 people wear seat belt. What can I conclude about the population? इसके बेसिस में मैं क्या बोल सकती हूँ कि मेरी population में कितने लोगों ने पहनी होगी. So when you want to go from sample back to population, you will use inferential statistics. So what will inferential statistics ask? Okay, in your sample, out of 100 car drivers, 65 were wearing seat belt. Then can you conclude that in your population, say more than 50% drivers wear seat belt? So beta, what am I trying to do? I am trying to go from sample. जो भी मुझे sample से information मिली है, उसके basis पे I want to conclude something about the population. यही तो voting में भी मैंने आपको समझाया. That some people, I have collected information about some people and they have told me that they voted for party X, party Y, party Z. They voted for different parties. Based on what these people have told me, I want to conclude something about the population. That in the population, how many percentage of people voted for whom? This is called inferential statistics. You are trying to infer something about population based on sample. Okay, beta. To do this, we use a very important tool which is called hypothesis testing. And I will be spending a lot of my lectures around this hypothesis testing also. ये भी हम full-fledged करेंगे बाद में. अभी के लिए we want to understand different things. Now, there is another thing that you should understand, and that is enumerative versus analytical statistics. All these can come in MCQs, beta, so you should be sure about these things. Try and understand. And enumerative statistics is done on the universe actually studied. Right? It describes the existing situation. analytical statistic, as the word is suggesting, an analytical statistics that is done to evaluate the future. थोड़ा समझने की कोशिश करते हैं through an example. Before we do that example, beta, I want to tell you that we have already studied what is a population. That's the whole data. And what is a sample? That's a subset of the population. Between population and sample, some books like Devore, they use a term called frame. अब ये frame क्या चीज है भला? Frame is basically accessible data. So population है whole data set. जैसे इंडिया का whole data मतलब कि जितने भी लोग हैं, मुझे उन सब का इनकम जानना है. I want to know income of all people. But beta, I cannot know the income of people who are doing black market, right? Who are in illegal activities. उनकी इनकम जानने का कोई तरीका नहीं है. So my accessible data will be only people with white income, right? And from that accessible data, I will create a subset. मैं सिर्फ कुछ लोगों की ही, जो भी लोगों की white income है, शायद मैं उससे कुछ लोगों की income निकाल के देखूं. So out of accessible data, you have the data that you want to work with. Okay. So basically from population to sample, these books, they include another term called frame. Frame refers to accessible data set. So you go from population towards frame, and jitna bhi accessible data set hota hai, from that you go to the sample. Now, let's go back to enumerative and analytical study. So enumerative kehta hai that I want to work with actual information and I want to deal with existing situation. Just for example, I may go to a firm, right? And I may ask different people about their feedback. That beta, okay, I ask first person, what is your feedback for this firm? Second person, what is your feedback for this firm, and so on. This is describing the actual situation in the firm. कि अच्छा इस time पे इस firm में इतने लोग satisfied हैं और इतने लोग satisfied नहीं है. ठीक है? So based on that, I will take some action on the population कि जो लोग satisfied नहीं हैं वो कितने लोग हैं, right? So enumerative basically works with the actual data set and it takes action on the population. It takes action on population. Now, let us compare enumerative with analytical. Analytical क्या करता है? It works with the future. ठीक है? जैसे for example, I know that my organization, people are satisfied with me. Now I'm thinking about the future. That in future, I want to go ahead and I want to stop work from home for my employees. Then what will I do? I can do something like this. My entire employees, I can divide them in two parts. Group 1 and group 2. For group 1, I will give them work from home facility. And for group 2, I will not give them work from home. And then I will aim to see which is more efficient. And accordingly, I will bring in my future policies. So this is a process that I am doing, right? When you are involved in existing process and you want to do something in the future, mera future ka aim hai to change my policy, whether I should be launching this or not. So when I want to work with the future, right? And to work with that future, I go ahead and I bring in a process that is called analytical study. So aim of analytical study is to go ahead and create a new system based on a process. It is for the future. The aim of enumerative study is to focus on today's results, is to focus on the actual situation, not on the future. This is my actual situation. How many people are satisfied with me? How many people are not satisfied with me? This is my actual situation. That is enumerative. But when I go ahead and I want to deal with the future situation, that is called as your analytical. So please write down one line each on this beta. So write down enumerative study is a statistical judgment in which focus is on the present results. Okay, it is on what is the existing situation. So you can say it focuses on existing situation. But let's compare this with analytical study. So analytical study, it is focusing on the improvement of the process involved. Improvement of process. It is focusing on future situations, right? So it will focus on creating results in the future. Now, let us go ahead and talk about collection of the data set. Data can be collected in various methods, various sampling techniques. But for now, today, I just want to focus on few of the important techniques that are given in any statistical books. Okay. So the first technique that you have is called simple random sampling. Beta, what is simple random sampling? The word, focus on the word. Random sampling. Matlab, I am randomly creating samples. In this, what you do is, take an example. Just for example, I have a population of 1,000 students. And I want to go ahead and I want to create a sample of 100 students. What will I do? I can go ahead and I can give number to each student. So I can say, okay, this is number 1, number 2, number 3. I've allotted number to each of them. And now what I can do is I can just go ahead, I can start a lottery system. So I will put all these numbers in a box, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then I will go ahead and I will pick up 100 chits from this box. So suppose the first chit that comes is number 5. Okay, select that person. The second chit that comes is number 8. Select that person. So whatever number will come in your chit, you will go ahead and you will select that person. And you will do this 100 times so that 100 people are selected, right? So when we come to the simple random sampling, as the word suggests, you just have to go ahead and you have to randomly select. But random karne ke liye, how do you randomize? To randomize, you can go ahead and you can do this chit method. There is another thing which you can do. Okay, beta. The definition of analytical study. This is the definition. It focuses on improvement of the process. Let me know once you have written. Done. Fine. Now just think about it. So beta, when we talk about simple random sampling. I'm just going ahead and collecting the data randomly. Now here, there is something which is known as random number generator table. Just Google it once, you will get this table. इसमें क्या होता है ना, randomly they will give you some numbers, 4, 2085, 45, ऐसे कुछ random numbers होंगे. You want 100, just keep picking from here. So I will pick number 4. I just want 100, but I want out of 1000. So 1000 में 2085 तो exist नहीं करेगा. Then pick up 45, then pick up next and so on. So you just pick up these numbers which are given in this random generator table, and in that you have done random picking, right? Now, because you are randomly picking up the samples, this is an ideal example of what is called as probability sampling. So I can divide my sampling in two parts. One is called probability sampling, and the other is called non-probability sampling. Probability sampling means it is by the basis of probability. That means by random selection. And non-probability sampling means it is based on your convenience or non-random selection. Right? Just for example, ये बहुत easy होता है. So a lot of times, when I was involved with my students in this research work, and I would ask them to go ahead and collect the data, they would just go ahead and create a Google form and spread it among their own relatives. But when you spread it within your own relatives, then it is a non-probability sampling. You are doing it on the basis of your convenience, right? You are not going ahead and you're not creating any probability per se, right? Probability tab hogi jab bahut log honge. So when you go ahead and you get the analysis that 50% of the people watch TV or 60% have TV at their home, and you're just collecting it from your own relative, that is clearly a non-probability sampling. So within this probability sampling, where you're collecting randomly, there the first method that you have, that is called as simple random sampling. और ये simple random sampling है जो हमने अभी पढ़ा कि just number people and एक lottery system से randomly draw people. That is simple random sampling. The second sampling that you have, beta, that is called as systematic sampling. Systematic sampling. ठीक है? Systematic sampling क्या बोलते हैं? It is similar to simple random sampling, but it is usually slightly easier to conduct. ठीक है? Every member of the population is listed with a number, but instead of randomly going ahead and generating numbers, you choose them at regular intervals. Let me give you an example. Just say I go to a village, and यहाँ पे ना in village के house numbers लिखे हुए हैं. House number 101, 102, 103, 104, and so on. And I go ahead and I say कि ये बहुत सारे घर हैं, maybe there are 1000 houses, and I want to collect 100 houses. Systematic मतलब अभी भी random ही है, क्योंकि मुझे नहीं पता किस घर में कौन है. But I am systematically collecting the sample. So I collect house number 101. Then I leave 2 houses. Then I collect house number 104. Then I leave 2 houses. Then I collect house number 10567 and so on. So I am following a system. That means I am collecting at regular interval, but it is still random in nature because I don't know which house has which person in it. So here the sample is collected at regular intervals. Okay, beta. Now, a lot of times HRs will use this. Okay, they will just alphabetically put people in their organization, and then they will pick up the first person, then 10th, then 20th, and so on. The third type of sampling, that is called stratified sampling. Stratified, in systematic sampling, AP or GP can be used. Yes, beta, you can use AP, you can use GP, you can use any technique as long as you follow that technique thoroughly. So कुछ भी create कर लो, ठीक है? जैसे for example, I can just say that I will pick every odd person. That's also a way that I have created. ठीक है? You just have to create a system here. Now let's talk about stratified sampling. So stratified comes from the word called as strata. Okay. And strata means, in a way, actually it comes from spectrum. It comes from different groups. This is, for example, just think about it. Let's say the government wants to go ahead and it wants to understand how its policies are working. Okay. And the policy that the government created is education for all. Now the government goes to all people who are above poverty line, who are able to afford their own education, and ask them, how do you feel about my policy? It will be a biased result. Of course, they have got nothing to do with the policy. They will be indifferent. They will simply say, okay, fine, it's a good policy. Unless you don't go to the right people, you will not be able to make the right conclusions. So when I talk about stratified sampling, I want that whenever I go ahead and I create my conclusions, it should be representative of all the sectors of the population. Just for example, I should be able to represent all the genders, all the race, all the religions. So I can create strata on the basis of any of these. So I can create categories that, okay, there are some people representing the first strata, first religion, some people representing the second religion, some people representing the third religion, so that I have information from all religions. Okay. So what you do, अभी भी मैं randomly pick करूंगी हर religion के अंदर से लोगों को, but पहले मैं religion के basis पे लोगों को divide करूंगी ताकि हर religion मेरे sample के अंदर represent हो पाए. So I have a population. First, this population will be divided into subgroup. This subgroup is called as strata, right? This can be based on any characteristic. जैसे वो characteristic gender, identity, age, income bracket, religion, region, job role, किसी भी basis पे मैं ये stratas create कर रही हूँ. And then each strata से I will randomly pick people. So randomness is still involved, but now I have ensured that my population has each strata being represented. This is very important in gender bias studies. Just for example, let's say I have 800 males in the organization and only 200 females. Now I want to ask, how do you feel about equality? I pick up 100 people randomly जैसे. तो बेटा अगर मैं डायरेक्टली 100 रैंडमली पिक करूंगी, बहुत हाई चांस है कि इस 100 में शायद 80% मेल ही आएंगे, क्योंकि आउट ऑफ 1000 चिट्स दैट आई विल क्रिएट, 800 तो मेल्स की हैं. सो व्हेन आई पिक अप चिट्स, देयर विल बी ऑलमोस्ट 80% मेल्स इन माय सैंपल आल्सो. Males may say that they feel gender equality when females may say they don't, or vice versa. We don't know, right? So I want that even sample, both should be represented well. So what will I do? I will create strata. And I will say, okay, 50% of my sample should be from males. Ab randomly koi bhi male pick kar lo inme se. And 50% from females, randomly koi bhi female pick kar lo. So what I am doing here is that I am representing the strata first and then I am randomly selecting. The fourth one and the last one that I have, that is called as cluster sampling. But a cluster sampling is also very similar. Most students get confused between cluster and strata. So cluster sampling also divides population in subgroup. But each subgroup should have similar characteristics to the whole sample. That means instead of sampling individual from each subgroup, you are randomly selecting the entire subgroup only. Let me give you an example. Just say, let's say, so एक बारी पहले लिख लो, you are randomly selecting subgroup itself. Now let me give you an example. Just say, for example, a company has, let's say, 10 offices across cities. Okay. Or let's say, let's not make 10 offices. Let's say it has offices across 10 cities. Okay. हर ऑफिस में roughly same number of employees हैं. Now, you don't have the capability to travel to each of the office to collect your data. So what will you do? You will go ahead and you will randomly select any 3 offices and you will collect data from these offices. ठीक है. तो अब मैंने क्लस्टर क्रिएट किया है. मेरा क्लस्टर क्या है? ऑफिस. ऑफिस 1 के जितने एम्प्लॉयज हैं वो ऑटोमेटिकली क्लस्टर 1 बन गए. ऑफिस 2 के जितने एम्प्लॉयज हैं वो ऑटोमेटिकली क्लस्टर 2 बन गए. ये सिटी 1 में है, ये सिटी 2 में है, ये सिटी 3 में है. और अब इन 10 क्लस्टर्स में से मैं रैंडमली 3 क्लस्टर्स को पिक कर रही हूं. सो आई पिक अप क्लस्टर 1, cluster maybe 10, cluster 5. I randomly pick up 3 clusters. So here I am randomizing on the cluster itself. पूरे का पूरा ऑफिस मेरा एक क्लस्टर था, मैंने पूरा का पूरा एक रैंडम ऑफिस उठाया. यहाँ पे I was not doing that. Here I was creating 2 stratas और उनके अंदर से मैं लोगों को randomly pick कर रही थी. यहाँ पे I'm not randomly picking up people from office. No. I am randomly picking up office itself. So I'm saying कि ये सब offices बहुत similar हैं क्योंकि ये सारे मेरे ही offices हैं. इनमें मैंने एकदम सेम तरीके के लोग रखे हैं, सेम जॉब प्रोफाइल के. सारे ऑफिसेज में भी मार्केटिंग के ऑफिसेज हैं. नाउ आई वांट टू सी हाउ दीज ऑफिसेज आर वर्किंग. सो आई पिक अप एनी 3 रैंडम ऑफिस. सो क्लस्टरिंग सैम्पलिंग randomly picks up a cluster, but strata sampling first creates strata and randomly picks up people from that strata. I hope you are able to understand the difference between the two. Okay, so this is very important from exam point of view to understand all 4 types of clustering in probabilistic clustering. Now, I'll stop here for today. In the next class, I will start with non-probability sampling, and then we will start with how to visually show different kinds of samplings. Yes, beta. So I will have these classes every weekend from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. I will see, maybe if time requires, we will also extend this to 1:30. But to begin with, we will have it from 12 to 1 every